But yeah. All of it.
Okay, have one.
We're calling this to order and, now stand, oh, no, we're gonna do the flag salute first. Roll call first. How did you want to do the roll call?
Well, Chris doesn't know everybody, so maybe we can introduce ourselves. You think?
Yeah.
So Krista does know me, Sarah Cash, I'm on the planning commission. I am not on this committee. But in my role with Alsea Community Action Collaborative, we're providing the technology until the county can get some technology for the committee. So, yeah. And hopefully a better IT person than me as well, right?
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Denise, now pro. I would. I just married off.
Congratulations.
So, Misty's friend or collaborative on the Alsea Garden Club committee, so I've just moved here in July.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome. My name's Misty Muncie. I grew up here in Alsea. It was Pittman. My mom and dad still live here. And I'm on the garden club.
Is just the space.
In Alsea.
She's the vice chair. Vice chair. Yeah. I'm Janet Hendricks. I am. You can do that. Okay.
And her grandson's Luke and Bethany is her, yeah.
And Ryan.
Bethany, Ryan.
Now I got another one. You don't really care.
Come on. No.
And I'm Amy Stout, and I'm your neighbor if you're over at the school. And I've been wanting to meet you. So this is a good idea. And I'm the most ancient member.
Probably the most wise.
Yes, the longest standing.
I started with this group in 1970.
Oh.
My name's Tim Pearson and I grew up in Alsea. I coached that kid right there in baseball. I loved every minute of it. I actually worked for Krista. I've worked for Krista for the last 2 years, so I'm mostly speaking to you, I guess. My family moved here when I was just 12 and then I pretty much stayed. I like Misty, pretty much stayed. I knew Misty's family growing up as well.
Okay.
I'm Randy Hart. I moved here in 1984. Been enjoying it ever since.
I'm Justin Weiss. I just live up the road, Mimi's neighbor. And lived here my whole life. That's about it.
And I am Kristen Nerod. I am the superintendent and principal of the school district. This is my second year. I grew up in a small town in Oregon, Bonanza. I don't know if you all know where that's at. So my parents still live there. We moved there in my high school years and my parents have lived there since then. And so I love small towns. It's one of my favorite things to do. I can't imagine living in a big town. It's just too many people. So this
Right.
is a perfect fit.
Okay, and we have to do the flag salute. Flags. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public comment. Anything from the general public? It'd probably be you, Justin, unless you want to wait till the end. We have it again.
Oh, I don't care. I've been talking to Sarah about this issue, trying to get permits for a remodel and some additions on my dad's place. And went and did the preliminary drawings and turned those in. The architect went to the county and they said everything was good. And we turned in a survey also, they said was fine. And so they gave the architect a packet about this thick because it's in the floodplain. And so she had to fill all that out for the permit stuff and finalize the plans and spent a lot of money on those. And turned them in, and they went across to Toby's desk. And she kind of ixnayed the whole thing because it's a substantial improvement and it's something to do with FEMA. And so if you put more than 49% of your home's value back into your home, it's classifies it as a substantial improvement. So that requires you to make the whole house flood proof. And so one of her options was to fill in the basement, which is not feasible. And so they decided they would let me do it in 3 phases, which is just gonna cost more money. I don't know how that's gonna work, but main thing is they didn't give me all the right information in the first place. Cause their turnover, like you said. That's just frustrating.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a time frame? Like, you know, when did you start that process and when did you turn in stuff? Or do you remember?
Started last spring
Last spring.
and it took a while to do all the plans and stuff and. I want to say it was August or September. By the time we turned the final plans in.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was,
Question, and I don't know if I heard you right. They wanted to know the certain percentage of the value or the footprint of the building that's there.
well, once we turned in the final plans, they're like, oh, this is a big project, which they already knew. And so it's over the 49% substantial improvement value that the FEMA has, I guess.
Can you?
So that's why they want me to split it up into 3 phases. To lower the value of each phase.
Okay, well, I never knew that was a requirement.
And the
For me,
value
it's always
being
been the size.
the amount of
not
value it's gonna add to the housing unit?
No, just the cost of the project.
Just the cost of the project as a
Because FEMA would
percentage of
have
the
to pay
value.
replacement. Because I think FEMA would have to pay for replacement in the event of a flood. I mean, why does that matter?
I don't know.
Yeah, I've just never heard that mentioned before, and
Yeah,
I've heard size mentioned
yeah,
and where mentioned, like the same footprint, it's only so much bigger.
right.
But I've never, because you can get values from certified appraisers, you can get values from realtors.
Yeah,
It doesn't necessarily mean the county's value or FEMA's value is accurate, so
yeah. They're just going off
I
the
would ask
last,
those questions.
the last appraisal it had just for the house, not the property.
Of the county's appraisal or
I
a
think
certified
Dad had
appraiser?
it appraised probably when he refinanced or something.
Okay.
Or it might be the counties, I'm not sure,
Well, boy, I'd be checking in. 'Cause
but it was
that's-
only like 2 something. So it doesn't take much to get over
The value for that
49%,
property.
just the house. They're only considering the value of the house.
A house of 5 acres. I mean, usually there's a piece
I
of
don't-
land that goes
An acre
1 acre, well, even,
with a home site.
let's just say you can't buy anything for 2 something anymore
We
No.
on
find-
the real market.
No,
You can
So-
buy my trail, single wide for 2 something, if you're interested. Okay,
Well,
I'm not kidding.
I mean, as far as us trying to be able to help you, we could somehow write a letter. I don't know that we know all the things anymore
yeah.
for that.
Sarah talked to Petra today,
Petra, yeah.
Petra, and because it's a federal thing, she wasn't sure if
Mhm.
they could do anything about it, but
No idea the Federal Emergency Management Agency that doesn't respond to anything, had a say.
yeah,
I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah,
I just don't know to say to you, Justin, that it's over. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know that the conversation is done.
I could add a historical thing.
Yeah.
Being, I'm so old. Anyway, I was around when the Columbia, wiped out the town of Bangor.
Mhm.
And, where they allowed on Hayden Island to be built I know, Red Lion.
Yeah.
Resort or something,
Right.
that, they allowed that. Well, when I saw that flood, there was 12 feet of water in that area, and that was on the edge of the Columbia. That's a mighty powerful river.
Mhm.
And, yeah, they allowed them to build that after that flood.
yeah.
So that our little dinky river.
That's just the North Fork, right? I mean, it's not the
Mhm.
Alsea. Has it ever flooded into the basement?
No,
Even in 96 or in 12?
no,
The big
and it was
one.
noted in one of the older surveys, it was surveyed in 93. And again in early 2000s, I think, I found a couple of older surveys. And it was noted on one of them that it didn't flood in 64. So I guess maybe that was a bad one. Was that?
Yeah, the
Yes,
Columbus
it was
Day
very
storm.
cool.
Yeah, it
Yes,
was huge.
Columbus Day.
Well, Cecil Hayden told me on my place, which is pretty like that place, that, and that was when he was 80 years old, he's passed away now, that the river had never flooded here.
Yeah. And they also made me get another survey. While I was submitting the plans, before they said anything about this substantial improvement thing. And that was $2,000 to have a survey done. And that didn't change anything. So they should have reimbursed me for that, really.
Stick up for yourself.
Your situation sounds similar to what I went through 25 years ago. It wasn't exactly the same, it had nothing to do with floodplain or anything like that.
Yeah,
But I did find a land use attorney in Portland that was able to give me kind of a cut rate because he felt like they were screwing me.
mhm,
And we were able to go up against them and able to
yeah,
able to, you know.
well, that has
I was
crossed my
able to-
mind.
So yeah, maybe an attorney or maybe a group of people, you know, some sort of. Mhm.
Something
Yeah.
that doesn't cost you a lot of money to do.
Yeah.
That's hard to find nowadays.
I know.
Whatever I can do, I will help.
Hey, Janet, it looks like Naomi says that she thinks that this would be a good issue for the CAC to take on and to appoint someone to work on it and to do the legwork, she says. And I can speak to this a little bit if you choose to take the time.
Happy to work on it, but please chime in.
Yeah, so like I spoke with Sarah, and I'm not familiar with the case, specifically, just, that's not something I work on, specifically, like I said, we have building permits. These go through building permits, it's not a land use application per se. We have, over about 2,500 of those, a year, so obviously I don't see them all. But yeah, the emergency management loss with the insurance companies and that lobby has been so powerful and it's been so expensive. In the last 20 years that they keep making it more and more stringent. And so, every other year or so, we've, been forced, because we hold the federal program in our hands. Basically that we have to use, all the federal, requirements for proofing in floodways and floodplain areas. And it is just beginning to be extremely expensive to build in those areas just due to all the damage across the country. So it really is a result of the insurance lobby over time. Not so much what the county has chosen to do. So we're really not out to get folks by any means. It really is a result of other factors like all the natural disasters that have been happening.
Well, I have a question for you, Petra, if it's okay.
Uh-huh.
He mentioned that it could only be 49% of the value of the house. He didn't know the acreage, and I wanna know who's establishing that value? Or will they accept a value that he would get from, say, a certified appraiser? Certified real estate appraiser?
Yeah, yeah, second opinion of some sorts. I mean, there's gotta be some sort of loophole around that process that I'm not privy to. That probably is on the private side. And, you know, even if I did know how to get around that requirement, I probably shouldn't speak to it. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be a bad idea to speak to a real estate attorney, and or a land use, person, just to get some advice on whether or not there's an alternative way in terms of valuation. But there's not really an appeal process on the land use side. But it is a good question, Janet, is to see if there's an alternative way to appraise the property.
I can just tell you right now, it's worth more than what they're telling him.
Yeah. And, you know, we've got the Measure 5, business that complicates our real estate values here in Oregon. And, but it's not an area that I know too much about either. So yeah, I would recommend talking to somebody who has, more experience in those areas. But the bottom line is, you know, FEMA's calling the shots.
Justin, if I may ask, so you're looking to do improvements on the building that's there already?
Yes, it's a 2-story with a daylight basement. And all the improvements are gonna be on the 2nd story, which is above the floodplain.
Vastly above the floodplain. And
Are you looking to, sorry,
no,
are you looking to build any closer to the river?
No,
Not, okay,
No.
so you're not like looking to add a building that's gonna be in jeopardy of being flooded or
no,
any more so than the building that's already there right now?
no, yeah, it'll be to the side and towards the highway. And
In case you're smart enough not to go further.
I mean,
Yeah.
it puzzles me why there would be an issue if you already have a building there. I mean, if you were gonna be adding something, well, I
Well,
just.
they don't, FEMA doesn't want to have to come along and replace it if it gets wiped out, and you're putting a lot more value.
yeah, that's all it comes
Kind
down
of
to
just an
is the
insurance
number.
company. Right,
and Justin, I'm new, I've only lived here 10 years, so I don't know what property you're talking about. Is that, just for my own edification, as I'm trying to learn about this stuff, is your dad's house close to the water? Is it,
It's fairly close,
fairly-
probably 100 feet.
okay, and then, so the property goes down to the river as well, like your
Mhm.
piece does, okay?
Yeah. It's just east of town, past Honey Grove,
Mhm,
on the right there.
mhm.
Beautiful waterfront, by the way.
Yeah, beautiful, it's a
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's a nice piece of property.
Good fishing hole.
Yes, yeah.
So, who wants to help Justin?
Yeah,
and his
do you have
subcommittee?
to have insurance?
Yes, I have insurance.
Do you have to have insurance?
Not
Yeah,
if you own it
I mean,
outright.
there's still.
When things have
loan.
changed, I just don't have insurance on our place. Because we couldn't get it, at least because it's a volunteer fire department. And,
Oh,
what they call type X. And, and then earlier, when Ted's dad died, like, we had term insurance, and it was just basically depreciating down as it went along. And, they offered like 10,000 for the bond and stuff like that, and I said, to hell with it. It's not worth having insurance if you have to fight them to do it.
Isn't there a substation,
If you-
isn't there a volunteer substation pretty close to,
But it doesn't count.
oh,
Lots of rural places, at least Progressive that was would not insure something with a volunteer fire department. And so But then I talk to neighbors, they get loans and stuff and they have insurance, so I guess they do have insurance. But do you need to have insurance? That's the other thing, if you don't have to have insurance.
Only time you don't have to is when you own it outright.
Yeah,
Anybody that loans on it's gonna demand. that you have to.
And so how do you, so obviously they must insure then for a rural fire.
I've never heard
Volunteer
anybody
fire
being
district.
denied out here, but then shop around.
I had one deny me.
But you managed to get some.
Mhm.
You currently have, I would imagine, flood insurance.
Yes, yeah,
So what, if he increases the value of his home, would it just be a matter of the insurance company saying, okay, well, now your insurance rates are gonna go up?
I would think.
yeah.
I mean, I don't understand why the complications of. Anyways, I would be happy to be on a committee to,
Okay.
address this.
I'll help also.
Okay.
So we can only have two on a committee.
I
That
appreciate
means
it.
I'm in on
So did you get that, Petra?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
That was Tim and Misty are gonna work with Justin.
Perfect.
That.
Yeah, that's great. And, we do have, the rest of staff, planning division folks, that they do know the building regulations for floodplain things and, ways that you can mitigate technically, like just removing the occupiable space from below the flood elevation, or being able to, punch the floodway flaps into the foundation, which is a relatively low expense way to get that taken care of. There's some newer technology that can do that at pretty low expense, but I don't know your specific situation, but we might be able to brainstorm some more ideas with you.
Thank you, Petra.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that something that we would coordinate, like, is that something where Tim and I and maybe Justin would get on a call with you, or would we just deal with it here in the meetings? How would that?
Yeah,
work?
you could just give the planning division a call and they'll sit down with you, or have a video call or a phone call, any of those three ways.
I'm sorry,
There's no
that's-
charge for that or
okay,
anything like.
Building, what,
The planning. yeah,
Usually you
'cause-
work with planning last,
okay,
from my experience, you get everybody fire, engineering
Flood.
first. And then you present it to planning. Cause they'll just throw roadblocks.
Because the new the new community development department has the planning department under it. So Petra's the director of those three departments under her: planning, economic
They won't have
development,
planning
and,
first by county.
yeah, building.
Yeah, and Toby's been at this for 20 years, and she's the only certified floodplain manager. So she's the only one that's certified to sign off on these permits. So there's that, and she's a stickler and a rule follower, which is fantastic. But other folks in the department also know some well, loopholes for alternatives, building alternatives. And you're also welcome to talk to our building inspectors that are both seasoned veterans as well. And they might have some ideas for you.
okay. Thank you, Petra, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And if you're having a hard time getting in touch with anybody, please let me know. I can help with that.
Awesome.
Justin, has anyone from the county come out and looked at your property?
Not that I know of.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah,
The inspectors can come out and look.
Mhm,
yeah, that would be good.
mhm.
Common sense would kick in, we can look at it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And we also have digital plan review now, where you can just upload to our website photos, and then they can do a virtual assessment as well.
They're putting in place all these new things to try to make it easier to get, like, you feel like you didn't have all the information you needed from the outset. We're
Yeah.
working on that now, trying to get that,
Yeah.
Like
I
where you
don't
can
know.
go through a portal and access what you need, you know, from the department, but it doesn't serve you, but at least they understand they're trying.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're trying to make it better, so you don't get those mixed messages.
right.
Yeah, and at the very least, Joe, by just being able to maybe hear the same information in a different way, you might have a different solution in your, you know, in your satchel, I guess, leaving from a second meeting.
Just, it reminds me of George and his expansion of the quarry
His creek.
Yeah,
and all the issues he went through. Finally, the county came and looked and said, oh, I see what you mean.
yeah.
It just makes so much more sense if
Mhm.
someone will come and look.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, another thing I've done is since I came on board, it's, oh gosh, it's been about a year now, is on the planning side, is that I do expect on the more complicated applications is for folks to go out in the field and see and do their site checks. This wouldn't be one of those things that I would generally say to do that, but by all means, if there's any question about what's actually there, I would like folks to go out and take a look. We have the capacity to do it. I just think that's better customer service.
okay. Is there anything else, Dustin?
No, I don't think so. To
Any-
start.
Yeah, it is. Any other public comments? Okay. We have to approve the minutes for last meeting. Agreed with all of it, except that I ever heard of
Right?
Peter Don. And I'm sure he wasn't here.
I think it's probably key to Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
But
thank
also
you.
naming you different.
Okay, add to my collection.
Okay, I move that we change Peter Don and Peter Tom. I hear that's possible.
And did they spell this name right?
No, his name is not correct.
Yeah.
So any other, changes?
Oh, I see, they're Peter Don, okay.
Oh, Naomi was not here.
She was on the Zoom.
Oh, she was on Zoom, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right, I remember she chimed in.
and she's here tonight as well, on the Zoom. She wants to hear about, she wants to hear Krista's
Okay,
presentation.
we're gonna have to turn it around so she can see.
I sent her, photos. Petra, I sent you the photos of the poster boards, if you want to look at the diagram when Krista's doing her presentation.
Okay, great. And Naomi asked for everyone to speak up if they can.
Okay,
Yeah. All right, do I have a motion to make changes to Dick Ho's spelling of his last name? We'll change Peter Don into Keita Tom. And other than that, we can approve the minutes from last week.
I make a motion to approve those changes.
Okay, Misty has made a motion. Is there a
No second.
Mimi seconds. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Krista.
Well, thank you all, very much for letting me come in and speak to you all today. I wanted to come and show you some ideas. Maybe I won't be able to do this. Some ideas that we had, as you all know, we actually don't have a commercial kitchen at the school. The kitchen is actually an old converted old classroom. And I believe the only real working, commercial kitchen in town is Dad's, the cafe. And one of the things that we're looking at is not only, a commercial kitchen for the school, because currently we actually have to, contract our food service out to Carvalho School District because of the lack of ability for us to have equipment and the lack of storage. But the other piece is we know if there's a catastrophe in this area, the school district would be, the school building would be the main hub for all these different pieces for people to come in. You know, if we had a wildfire and 34 was cut off between us and Philomath, we know that people would come this way. If there was a tsunami warning in Walport, where would they come? This way. And so one of the things that we've been talking about at the school district, and this was actually kind of happening before I came on board was how do we convert, our current kitchen to a commercial kitchen? Well, when we actually did a cost analysis of what it would cost to convert that classroom to a working commercial kitchen, it was actually cheaper to build another building. Mostly because the building is so old that the updates would actually cost quite a bit. We would have to put in firewalls. And so if you've all driven past the school, which I know you all have, you know, we have this huge front area. We built this lovely CT building. And you can see next to it, we actually would put a commercial kitchen. And this kitchen would actually house, so this is kind of the land plan of it. This is our play shed. Here, right here is our playground. This is our field in front. This would just add to the front of the school in front of the gym. And then we would have like a quad here where we could actually add in some covered areas for more seating. We would have more of a paving area here, which would actually help us to make sure the kids are not muddy when it rains and they go outside. But ultimately our idea is this would not only be a school building to use, but also for a community building. So if there are big events and we needed a commercial kitchen, we would be able to have people use this building for whatever needed. So this is actually the drawing of the building. The main building here is this kind of pink area. We would add a kind of a courtyard, a cement courtyard, which my idea would be is if we could find enough money, it would actually hit to the front of the gym. And there would actually be able to be, Naomi, I hope you can hear me, I'm trying to speak loud, a covered area so we can have indoor, outdoor seating. Right now, this capacity for this commons would be between 75 to 90 total people to sit. We would add restrooms, which you have to in new buildings, but most importantly though, we would actually have a commercial working kitchen that could be used to do mass quantities of food. Right now, at our school building, we are only able to store food for enough for between 3 to 4 days. So if there were an emergency, one, we would have lots and lots of cereal. But two, we would actually be unable to cook. We have warming ovens, we don't have stovetops. The one reason we don't have stovetops is because the power circuit in our school was unable to do it. We upgraded power, but as we looked at putting stovetops in, we actually don't have enough space. And so one of the things I've met with Benton Community Foundation, I met with the Ford Family Foundation, and we've actually met with Benton County about this building is not just for the school, it's actually for the community. It would be, obviously it would be used majority of the time for the school. But again, if there's a catastrophe, if there's a wildfire, we know in our school building, we can actually house up to, I think it's 1,000 people. So if we needed to have any sort of place for people to congregate to stay, we can house 1,000 people. We cannot feed that many. So the idea, like I said, was this would allow us to be able to cook in mass quantities. And then be able to, you know, we have here, this is about 75 people, but we could also open up the gym to feed people. And if you ever walk in the gym and you actually look up on the wall, it tells you how many people you can put in there. It actually, when you add them together, and I think Tim and I have talked about it, actually you can add in like 900 people in that gym. So we could actually feed, if something were to happen, we could house and feed a majority of the Alsea Valley. So one of the things that we are currently doing is we have in partnership with Benton County, I think it's the Philomath, I can't remember that organization, but it's the Monroe Food Bank, so South Benton County Food Bank. We've put in for the the Resiliency Hub grant through the EPA. We put that application in November. Total we asked for approximately, I believe it was somewhere in the ballpark between 15 and 20 million between the three entities. We specifically asked for 7 million. This setup you can see right here with all of, the paving and the covered. We've been estimated, we think this is on the high cost. We've been working with Nancy and Chris Gady on IMS to help with this. And the school district has actually put money into having these, plans drawn. And hopefully Benton, we put in a grant for Benton Community Foundation to help us offset the costs. But we have been told that this building will cost between 3 to 3.5 million. We think that we might be able to cut that down between 2.5 to 3 million. If we get the resiliency grant, this will be not a problem. Our other idea with the resiliency grant is we would actually take this building here, so our play shed. And we would actually completely remodel it and put other locker rooms, so showers, and some offices. So if we were to have a catastrophe, you would actually have a command center. But we would completely redo this. One of the major issues is the school board has asked that if we do have a catastrophe and we do house people, but we are able to bring the students back, that we have a place that people can still stay while needed, but separated from the kids. So the idea is that that building would do that, but we would still be able to use, as you can see, the cafeteria. It would not be connected to the building. It would not be connected to this building. It would be central. So we could still feed people and they could stay in our play shed, but the kids would be able to come back and go into their normal routines. So the big issue is right now, funding is predicated on the resiliency grant. We're not really sure where that's at, especially with the federal freezes. If we do not get it, the school board and I are still committed to raising the money to create the building. One of the things, my reason to come to you all is I wanted you all to kind of start looking at what we're doing. We might need support to get different grants. I've talked with Benton Community Foundation. They think they could possibly help us with about 400 to 500,000. The Ford Family Foundation thinks they could probably help us with between 400 to 500,000. That still leaves 1.5 million to 2 million. I think for the sustainability of the school districts, what I'm going to tell you is that we pay Corvallis quite a sum of money to help us run our food service program. And that money, and if you know anything about the nutritional program at the school, it's actually not fully funded. So the nutritional program is actually a program in almost every school, and I would say 95% of schools operates at a loss because the federal government does not reimburse the amount it's needed. So we are currently operating every year for our food service program between 60 to 75,000 out of our general funds. We're hoping when we can bring, if we can get this county, that number will drop between 15 to 20,000 is what our hope is. Like I said, about 90% of the school districts, they all operate at loss. Small districts actually almost all operate at loss because truthfully, I would rather pay for my kids to eat than not pay for them to eat. That's a trade-off I'm willing to do, but it's also how do I make sure that we're using our money effectively and efficiently. The other piece, like I said, is that this, I think, is a benefit to the community. It's not only for catastrophes or to house or to feed multiple people in events of wildfires, but it's also, you know, we've had big events at our school where people have said, hey, we would like to be able to feed people. We had one this fall. There were 400 people there. I am actually not really quite sure how in God's green earth we got food in and out. We could not cook it there. It actually had to be brought in. And so our hope is that we would also this would be a center of the community for different events. That this could be a place where the community could come and congregate and could have meetings and to fellowship over meals. I just realized, and I don't know why it took me a year to realize that when we talk about the park in Alsea, we're actually talking about the school playground. Because they kept going, we're going to the park, and I was like, where? And they're finally like, it's the park, Miss Nira, and they all pointed right here. So to me, that's a really a good indication of how central this school building is to the foundation of the community's pretty much heartbeat. And so it's like I said, I wanted to show you all these. I wanted to get these out. We've seen these a lot at our board meetings, but I want to start getting out at the community. One of the things that, Chris at Benton Community Foundation, as he said, when we go out, if we don't get the resiliency grant, we're gonna have to start looking at different grants. And he said, one of the things that grantors are gonna ask is, how much has your community been involved in seeing and supporting this? Has your community done any sort of fundraising to help with this piece? And so I'm really hanging my hat on the resiliency grant, because actually I think $7 million would do a great things for the community. It's not even just about building the buildings. We would actually put a generator at our school. So if there were no power, and it happened last year about this time, there were people who didn't have power for 7 days, that we could still provide hot meals, hot showers. We would have solar power. That's part of that grant because it's through the EPA. We would be able to provide that. We would be able to just pretty much live on our own if needed. And so, like I said, I wanted to present this to you all and get this out in front of you, and hoping we'll hear something about the resiliency grant for soon. Like I said, they put it in November. We're not sure what's going on. But if not, I want to come back and see if maybe we can problem solve as a group. What are some ways, what are some letters of support we can write? Does anybody know of different funders that we can do? And like I said, this isn't, to me, this isn't just about the school. This is about the community and being able to be resilient in the time of need, where perhaps we are cut off from our main office and different things, or we're cut off from a supply chain that, like I said, right now, if we needed anything, I could boil water for you and you guys could have cereal. That's pretty much all we have. And it's about a 3 to 4 day supply. And so this would allow us to keep probably up to 2 weeks worth of food, and to be able to house and feed up to, 1,000 people if needed. So, do you guys have any questions? Yes.
Where are you thinking about the solar panels?
I don't know about the solar panels. That's one that we would have to bring people out to look at where to put them. I don't know much about them. I do know they have to kind of point to the direction of the most sun, but that would be something later we would look at.
Okay.
And batteries too. So we would have all different types of power.
And then I understand that the funding is dependent on all kinds of different money things, but I didn't track quite what you were saying. Were you saying that if you get the resiliency, then you would do the kitchen and remodel the play shed? And if you don't get the resiliency, you're going to try to just do the kitchen? Is that the follow through there?
Yes, so if we don't get the resiliency, we're gonna just try to raise money for the kitchen. Right now, the district received the seismic grid through Business Organ in the state. So we're actually doing $1.8 million worth of construction this summer on our gym and our locker rooms and our high school offices. And this grant is given out to schools and other public buildings to ensure that in case of an earthquake, our structures will be able to withstand. I don't know what the exact level is, the exact magnitude, but like this summer, you will actually see the front of the gym will actually get a whole new facade. They're actually just gonna take out that whole wall and put another one in there, but then is it too expensive? So they're actually gonna build a wall right in front of it and tie it in. And then we're redoing the locker rooms completely, because when we redid our HVAC system, we actually took out the old boiler. So currently, our locker rooms do not have hot water. And it has just one big shower, like a communal shower. So the plans, and we're almost done finalizing the plan, is each locker room below the stage will get 3 individualized stall showers, and we're gonna put hot water heaters in both, so we'll have hot water. And we're gonna put more restrooms in there, or updated fixtures and different things like that. So right now, after this gets all done, we will have 7, because then we're gonna redo our old staff, which is our gender neutral bathroom that has a shower in there. So we'll have 7 working showers. Imagine having 7 working showers and 500 people. So our idea is really, if we meet this resiliency grant, we would probably add another 7 to 10 showers here. And again, that's being the main push of that resiliency grant is Benton County. But if we don't get it, like I said, this is our number one priority. And we are also working on, we have another application in for another seismic grant. It would actually go for the high school, and one of the reasons we're doing the high school hallway first is because of the kitchen.
Because
We
of
are not
what?
sure, pardon?
Because of what?
The kitchen that we currently have, because we don't have this for sure yet. We want to make sure that the one that we currently do have can withstand anything that is there. Like I said, we had actually talked about extending, just remodeling our kitchen and extending that wall out, but when we got estimates back of how much it would cost, it was actually between 3 and 4 million, just to remodel an existing room.
And what we do with the kitchen space?
Turn it back into a classroom. Cause if you notice, we actually have, if you can see, if you can think about our grounds, we actually have a modular right here that we currently use for the classroom. We would take that modular out and move that classroom into the building. Yes.
Well, I have a dream. We have these multi-purpose agriculture, and we have other agricultural aids too. And what I would like to see happen here is that we create some small farms, and I think there's a lot of interest, you could have to ask Jennifer about that, because she's a real estate lady. But in people that want to grow their own food and other food, that's probably they would be organic, that wouldn't have to be, but anyway. And I would have, but we need a commercial kitchen, and that would probably be mostly in the summertime, I would think, when the crops come in. And if there was a way to process them, that would be wonderful.
Well, and I think it would be such a great way by having commercial kitchens and start teaching skills. I can see community cooking classes. I can see, like, currently we do have a culinary class, but we have to limit it to only actually 15 kids because of the space. This would allow us to actually open up that for the kids. We could do after school cooking. There's so many different things that we could do it that could be also used in the community that I think would just be a benefit in general to everybody.
We and I need to take care of it.
DL meeting. Love it. But I appreciate you guys listening. If you have any questions, you know where I work. Please, you can drop by, my secretary will get me, or you can drop me an email. I think, this is great. I want to tell you, we have done construction, and I hear your frustration because we think we turned in everything we needed and they needed more, or they were like, actually, we don't like that, you have to redo it. So I'm sorry, I did with a year of that, it was not spectacularly happy.
Yeah.
Because my thing is before they say yes, they should actually look before they make you pay more to say, no, this isn't going to work.
Exactly.
I hear you on that. Chris Giggy and he had to take my keys away a few times. No, you can't go talk to them. Let me go talk to them. But like I said, I appreciate you guys listening to me. I'm sorry if I rambled, but if you have any questions, I would love, at any time, I would love for you guys to ask. I love talking about this. Yes, I don't want to drag this out, but.
And this is probably a long shot, and I would like all these facilities, it's wonderful, but if the play shed becomes something else and we're using it for practice for middle schoolers, where are they, what's gonna happen?
If we have to have an emergency.
No, if we
Oh, it
have
would be-
practice every day.
We would it would ultimately stay as an extra gym. We would more than likely, if you've ever been in the play shed, what I've been told, it's an old pole barn that just had walls put up.
Volunteers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think is really great. I think though, we would remodel it in terms of, we would actually redo the floor. We would make it, insulate it a little bit more, make it more structurally sound for seismic events. But we would add, like I said, we would add showers and locker rooms. So, we could actually almost have 2 working rooms with some offices. It would stay a gym because we need it.
Of course, my dream is a gym, a new gym.
Mine too. I would love that. I think that would actually help us out a lot in terms of space, and time. We often have kids practicing until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And if some of our, I don't wanna say we're lucky. This year our time is not as stretched, but because our girls are actually, co-oping with Monroe for basketball. But if we had a girls team, which we did last year, we'd have one team practice from 3:30 to 5:30 and another team practice from 5:30 to 7:30.
And would the new gym be in a new building or replace the existing gym?
We would put in a new building. Where would it go? I'm not sure yet, but I have all this lovely land. I mean, you could actually replace this.
Things be the
That's
baseball.
shocking.
So, like I said, I just wanted to put this out in front of you all, so you can start seeing kind of our plans. Of what we would like to do. If you have any comments, that would also love that. I love the idea of being able to use it as a community piece, having those small farms and being able to use it in the summer. One of the things that we are also struggling with is summer lunch program. One, because we have all of the construction. This is the second summer that our kitchen, last summer we didn't have power for 8 weeks, if you didn't know. And this summer when we do the seismic, they're actually ripping one of the walls of our kitchen out to put in a shear wall. So this will be the second summer we won't be able to do summer lunch program. But if we had something like this, we would be able to really have that. And summer lunch program is actually free for all children. You don't even have to live in the district from ages 0 to 18. In my previous district, when we did the summer lunch program, people would just drive on through and they'd see our sign and they'd stop and have lunch, which was great. We loved it. And so this would also open up those opportunities to have our kids be able to still access food for free during those summer months.
Something else that might play into that too, if you get this as there's USDA has a farm to school program, lunch program, so.
And that's, you know, in my previous school district, I lived in Port Orford, which is down south. We actually used the farm to school program. We got, I think it was about 2,000 a year. And we were able to we had a local rancher actually donate a Jersey cow.
Yeah.
And we got 600 pounds of ground beef from it. And then we had local fishermen who actually sold us their tuna at a discount. And so the kids got really fancy with their tuna. They're like, is this the long tuna or the canned tuna? And I was like, don't be snobs like that. But we also had blueberry farms, so we got fresh blueberries. Right now, we actually have trouble doing that because we don't have the store. I've already had a couple people come up and say, we'd love to donate a Jersey cow. And I was like, I would love it, but I don't know what to do with it. So that would allow us to be able to access more farm fresh food from our area.
But that's where our little farm that we want to create.
Yep.
Would come in handy.
Yeah, more farmers that actually make food.
And what I loved about them is the farmers actually would come in and the ranchers would come in and the fishermen would come in and they actually would talk about how they caught their tuna and what it looked like and brought pictures and the kids loved it. And it was great because a lot of those farmers and ranchers and fishermen were actually parents of the kids who went to our school. And so, like I said, that would be another reason why we want this, because we could access more of that money to support our local economy as well. Well, thank you all very much for your time. I know I just rambled.
No, you're great.
All
Good information. Thank you.
Good to have the vision part, so I'm glad you told us.
Hey, Trent, your turn. I can't hear me. Oh.
Sure. Yeah, and I was wondering a little bit about your expectations for this. So what you'd like me to do is just to go over the permitted uses and the conditional use in the village.
It was for the village zoning, right?
Yeah, do you guys still have your handouts from last month available?
At home, but that doesn't matter.
I
I
have it.
remember it all.
I have a couple.
Okay, well, it probably would be helpful, but the table really just did show that there are, about 15 to 18 commercial and different residential densities available inside the Alsea kind of village area available right now. And the numbers that are associated in that table are just references to where you can find that information in the code. online if you wanted to find some more information in there. But that's really the basics of it, is that if you wanted to kind of take a look at that list, or if you had any questions about what any of those meant, I'd be happy to tell you. But really, like what Patrick said, is that there's a lot of flexibility in what you can build in that central area.
Inside the village boundary.
Uh-huh.
And so then this, I have a spreadsheet that you sent last time that has the numbers that you said for the looking things up.
Uh-huh.
Do all of the uses on this spreadsheet occur in the village, or are these just possible?
Those are all the things that are possible. So no, I don't think that all those things are represented. But if somebody had a hankering to build any of those types, that
Mhm.
that's, you have the ability to do that outright without going through any special process. And then, so those are the permitted uses. So no special process for any of those. Many of them just straight building permits. And then the conditional uses are things that are a little bit more complex, and those would be things that, for the most part, the Planning Commission and the CAC would take a look at.
Like, for instance, what, like
A school, or a new open space, or a park, or maybe it's maybe it's a subdivision that has its own water system or something like that. And that's, I mean, that's an extreme example. I don't think there's capacity with the utilities right now to be able to do something that large. But they are permitted uses. You would need to have the infrastructure in place. So those types of things where you'd have need utilities, those would be conditional uses as well.
and so these are all possible on any piece of any chunk within the village boundary?
Yeah, most of those zones, the village residential, it has a list of those ones, and then the village commercial, and those are really the only two zones that are in that central area. Do you guys still have the large map, zoning map available that was in that side room?
Naomi has it, I think.
Okay.
Did you look today, Misty? No. No, we still have it, though. We just don't have it tonight, I'm sorry to say.
Okay, no, that's fine. And if we had a larger screen, it would be worth sharing the screen, but it's not going to be helpful whatsoever with this little screen. So, but you know, go ahead and look over that. And if you had any questions about those definitions of what any of those things are, it's to me, they seem straightforward, but that's only because I work in that world. So yeah, if you have any questions about the definitions of any of those types of uses, I'm happy to answer that. And again, all those little numbers and references are really just citations, so that if you wanted to dive deeper into where they're referenced in our code, you could find them online.
So let's say somebody wanted to do one of these things, what would they do?
You just make an appointment with the building division. Let's just say you want a new house. It's just a new house would just be a building permit. So that's what's called a ministerial review. It's non-discretionary. It's the state building code, just like a floodplain permit. So you need to get your, you know, safety building permits, and you're good to go. If it's a more complex item, or if you wanted to change, say, a lot line adjustment, something like that, make a property larger or smaller, or partition means, you know, splitting it into two or more legal lots, for example, that is a land use decision, and that would be something that one of the planners would do, and I would sign off on it. But again, it's relatively non-discretionary. There's really basic rules for those, like how small the properties can be, or how small that they can be is, you don't have an upper limit for how large they can be in those areas. So again, just really straightforward, you'd need to have, you know, a 2-scale model of what you intended to do, on paper. So that's a requirement, and then need to be able to record that with the assessor's office, when you're finished with the plat. So that's the visual representation of what you wanted to do. That's recorded with the county. So that's another example of one that's really straightforward. There aren't too many opportunities for the more complex things, I think, in kind of the village area, just because a lot of it's already built out. But I guess it's conceivable that, you know, maybe someone demolishes 5, you know, properties and wants to consolidate and build an apartment complex. That would be something that would need to go to the County Planning Commission and to the CAC. And there's a lot more discretion in there. So you all would be making decisions about open space and fencing and landscaping. And there's a lot of different things that you can ask the developer to do in the form of conditions for their development.
Does it have to be like just down on the main street, or can it be any place in the town itself?
It's not just the main street, but it's mostly the main street. So it's really kind of 2 blocks in each direction, and then north-south, it's about 4 blocks.
But it can't just be any place in the town.
Or apartments,
I
you
think
mean?
inside this,
No, I'm just
boundary.
thinking if somebody's got a house in the town and they want to have a business in there, can we do that?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for that. That's called home occupation. So some of the actual houses, they might look like a house, but they might be zoned for commercial so that you could have a business outright in what looks like a residential structure. So there are examples of structures that look like houses that are actually zoned for either. So yes, there are some examples of those. I can't tell you precisely which properties those are. There's also opportunities in residential for home occupations. That means if you don't have too much of a huge impact on your neighbor's properties and you live in a residence, you can have like a hair salon out of your home. Things that have a little bit lower impact on your neighbors. So those are all allowed in the village residential as well, home occupations.
Pedro, when that zoning first came in, Chris Bentley did all that work. Zoning our village here. Part of what she presented to us was that the 2 zones of residential and commercial were interchangeable. And that you just apply and you can get, you know, a commercial switch to residential or vice versa. But
Yeah.
You, say a structure there and it's a business you want to put in or something open to public. What happens then? Do they have to go through and have, you know, wider hallways and wider doorways and ADA approval and parking spaces and all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. For public buildings, yes, you have to, here's another proportion of the principal cost of the building, okay? And this is a state rule, is that you need to put 20% of your public improvements of the structure into ADA compliance. So again, it comes down from the federal government. So basically you have to start at the front door and make that accessible and then move your way out onto a sidewalk into the parking lot, and you're obligated to spend 20% of the cost of the project committed to making ADA improvements if it's a public structure. If it's a private structure or if it's a rehabilitation of a historic structure, you're exempt.
And could you define public and private? Just, I'm ignorant of what you mean when you say that.
The school would have to make sure that it's completely ADA compliant. If you had a coffee shop, you would not.
Okay. Unless you're building a new building and then you need to put 20% in or not.
Yeah, so the bathrooms, there's a higher standard for public buildings, but there are some basic private requirements for ADA into the standard building codes these days.
Right.
Hey, this is Misty. When you referred to historic, do you mean like officially on the historical register or historic as in old?
It could be both. So, yes, absolutely, if it's on a federal historic register, 100%. If it's on the state inventory, yes. If it's in a local district, yes. And if it's just an older home, as part of your rehabilitation project, you could protect it. And that could also provide you some leverage for not having to do all the improvements. But you can't have it both ways. You have to have some protections on the structure to keep its historic integrity. And that's the trade-off to having to do the ADA improvements.
So I see I do have a map in front of me that's just on an 8.5 by 11. And some properties closest to the river, if I'm understanding the blue line, are in the floodplain partially. And from looking at them, I can see that the structures they're on would be, you know, in the floodplain. And so does that change the story for all of these? We have Justin here having his problem with the FEMA, so.
Yeah, it's just more expensive to build. You can't build in the flood way. So that's, you know, when you're going to see something on a regular basis flooding. But if you're, someone was referencing flood zone A and flood zone X, so that talks to statistically how frequently and severely you might, a property or a corridor would actually be experiencing flood. So in A and X, you can build, but it is expensive and it does require insurance. And you know, sometimes it has to be stilted and you can't actually occupy the bottom floor. So yeah, I mean, oftentimes it's not the best place to expand your community.
Right, there's just existing places there that don't flood, is my understanding. Do you know any about those older houses across from the bus barn? Have those flooded in shared memory?
No, it always floods out toward Alma's house, Carmen's. It doesn't flood there. Because that bank is higher.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah.
Doesn't show on the floodplain map.
Well, this is what we have to go by. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
show
what
the
we're
houses.
looking at right here. Yeah, it shows it and see the blue line.
Right.
It's inside the blue line,
Yeah, right. Yes, right.
All those maps are truly inaccurate, but if you want to get out of the floodplain, you gotta pay to get your own survey done and go through the process on getting that amended on the map.
So this is fascinating. So I'm just gonna ask you a question right out of my own wanting to know stuff, because I'm intrigued by these cottage cluster ideas as a potential solution for workforce housing to staff our existing community services. And is that something we would need some more space if we were to do something like that?
Yeah, likely, unless you want to go up.
Yeah, unless we wanted to go up. Right, that's why I like the cottage cluster, because people actually maybe get a little house, you know? It was interesting what the people said at that meeting on Thursday about, you know, maybe home ownership becomes a thing of the past. But that doesn't mean you still couldn't maybe have a yard, especially if you were living out here in the country. And a garden, you know? But so if we wanted to do something like that, we just have to go outside the existing village boundary. And that would involve interfacing with the county about changing something.
Yeah, there's some opportunity to expand, just not in every direction and not into EFU,
Not into what?
Exclusive.
not into exclusive farm use. It's not very likely.
Okay. Do either of those show where the EFU starts? I
They
didn't
can
know.
only do that down in South Corvallis when they go into the prime farm ground.
Right,
Isn't it
I know that
something?
new apartment, those new townhouses out there, I was like,
Yeah.
that was a field last week.
You know, something that I jotted down is about the soil. Is whether or not, or how much class 1 soils you have in and around Alsea. And my understanding is that there's a lower portion of class 1 soils, which could actually benefit Alsea in terms of expansion, because you don't just take into account EFU. There's a whole urbanization set of criteria that you have to balance and basically convince the state that you're making the best choice based on what your existing conditions are. So the fact that you talk about the soils being a little bit lower quality than might be in other areas of the valley could be an advantage for Alsea.
And I'm looking at a map now that has been shared here before, and it comes from the last, I pulled this map out of the last community countywide, plan, right, from 2007 or whenever it was. And it shows that all the land around Alsea is EFU. So there's no transitioning that EFU out of farm use and into residential. Earlier, you said as long as you don't go into EFU.
That's the first position, but then all those other things I said after
Okay.
that.
So it's a
So-
possibility. It's just something that one has to work towards quite diligently and address that ESSE that Patrick brought to us last month, which was his, he told us to, oh, of course I dropped it. It was economic, social, environmental. What was the other one? It's here. Energy, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And that it would be, with the positive impact that it would have for the community. Is that the kind of things you're meaning we'd have to have pulled together if we wanted to write a
Exactly.
boundary a little bit? Okay.
You have to pay back 10 years back, whatever valuation.
Oh, is there a special? And what is it?
Well,
Goes through with anything.
back when,
Oh, I can't do it.
my husband was told that there was no class 1 agriculture soil in Alsea, and it was due to the high rainfall that washes the nutrients and stuff and causes the soil to be acid.
And that is what I heard from the USDA about a year and a half ago
Mhm.
in a conversation on a different topic,
But then.
when
I
my
read
dog
that
ate the map.
The stuff from the county calls it all high value farmland.
That's because they take class 1 and class 2 and consider it high value.
Oh. Well, I guess it's class 2, then is what they told me.
Yeah.
On the USDA web soil survey, this was a couple years ago, over Alsea, it seemed like it was higher. It was like more closer to class 1, but we wrote the truth.
But you'll see, I mean, what people run stock out here,
Right.
yeah. That's what soils, yeah.
Supports,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
So Paige, what you were saying earlier, I mean, if I'm breaking it down, are you saying like it's possible, like if we were to do soil testing and the soil was poor enough, we could get permission to build on it? I mean, I'm just.
Yes.
Most simplistic
Literally,
statement.
that's literally
Wow.
what she's saying.
Yes. Yes, I mean, so those environmental factors are very important to Oregon.
Mhm.
But the fact, like I said, it sounds to me like there's an opening, just on the fact that it's not the highest classed soils. So you kind of get to go to plan B, which is looking at buildable lands inventory, housing need, like you said, energy efficiency, resiliency, how isolated are you from other communities? I mean, there's a whole list of codified factors at the state level that planners do an analysis on. And we could get grant funding from the state to do that analysis, to see where, you know, the lowest hanging fruit in terms of expansion is. I can't say it's urban growth expansion because you're unincorporated, but there's that. And I've also put together a primer on the advantages and disadvantages of actually establishing home rule, which would mean that you actually create a boundary, which is called incorporation. And I know that sounds like a bad word to a lot of folks, but if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about that, being able to have your own tax base and making all of your own decisions about more or less where to expand, then I'm prepared to do that. Because I do have a PowerPoint that I prepared for you, if and when you're ready to listen to that perspective.
And you did that with another community, right?
I haven't yet, no.
Oh, I thought somebody mentioned that, that they took a community through that process.
Oh, yeah, Patrick was involved with this, with Damascus, and that was an epic fail.
Well, that's often the most useful knowledge you can pass on, you know, is the epic fail, right?
Yeah, it kind of is, but that's what you need to have community support to do it. And so that they did not have that at the time. There are just too many different interests for them to incorporate. So they just chose not to. But Damascus is also, you know, about 10 times larger is what they were trying to do in one moment. That might not have been the smartest thing to do either. So, you know, talking to a community this size that is cohesive as Alsea is, that might be an advantage to having that conversation as well.
So if I'm just asking these questions because if some things we know is impossible, it can just be off of the list, right? So if there were some affordable type units put in somewhere, right? Would it need to link into our expanded existing infrastructure? Would it need to create its own infrastructure? I'm specifically thinking of sewer and water.
Okay, yeah, so kind of getting to our misnomer. I do understand it's a fun rumor, but you do have more capacity than one more building permit in terms of water and sewer capacity.
How many?
I don't think there's a number, but I was gonna talk to our public works director when I can track him down just to see if he has a little bit more specific information, but it's more than one. You're good for a while. All of your vacant property is covered that you have in your area right now with no problem. You're just gonna have a hard time expanding the existing properties into outside of what's already been zoned for quote unquote urbanization without additional capacity in the sewer system.
And so that's what I mean with that. Do we need to think in terms of expanding the existing facility to accommodate, let's just pretend, okay, that we're gonna put in 30 units to house people who could do work in Alsea services. Do we need to be able to, we get a chunk of EFU transferred over, right? We prove our point, and then would they need to hook into an expanded existing infrastructure, or would we have to, what are we looking at there?
Well, there's a couple different options. So there's land use options and there's engineering options. There's always an engineering option. So right now for the folks that are on septic, there's options that you can put that you can remain on septic if you remain unincorporated. If you're to become incorporated, then there's a rule that people need to support, because you need critical mass to support a public utility, right? So, that's why people are required to eventually hook up over time, into the public, utility system, so water and sewer.
Okay.
But there are different options and there are hybrid approaches. For example, there's some technology called the step system. So step effluent, so they leave the liquid, excuse me, the solid waste in the septic system, and they just pump the liquid effluent into the wastewater treatment system. It's easier on the treatment system, and you can keep the septic infrastructure and not waste that. So, I mean, there's some lower cost options for helping communities kind of evolve into a more traditional sewer system. When I was city manager in Coburg, we had 600, Coburg was the largest community in Oregon that was still on septic systems. And we put in a a step system with a brand new wastewater treatment facility, 640 hookups for $6 million.
How long ago was that?
I'm sorry?
How long ago was that?
Oh, let me see. So that it took 4 years. So when did we start that? 2012, 13?
And so I'm talking about new structures.
Yeah. I'm just saying that cost is about, a third of the cost of a traditional system.
And
I know
so-
that you have substantial completion on your water system project, and you have pretty decent capacity in that water system at this point. And I think it was at a $1.2 million investment for Alsea and Alpine. And now they're moving over to the sewer system. And I'll get you some more information in terms of specifications and stuff on that one. But it's primarily a maintenance project, not a capacity building project. What I think would be interesting is to see if we can't find the resources to do an engineering study on what it would cost to actually build capacity for the system in the future. Because that understanding what those costs get you closer to a shovel-ready site, and a shovel-ready site or project is what's going to be appealing to the politicians and the funding agencies when they think that you've got skin in the game because you've spent time on engineering.
Can we just request that from you right now and you'll ask them then?
It's just that simple, Janet.
Okay, we're asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they realistically, I don't want to be bearer of bad news. It's not bad news. The county's put a pretty substantial investment into Alsea here with these two multi-million-dollar projects. And so I imagine after the sewer project is done, there'll be some other priorities outside of Alsea as their top. But that being said, it doesn't mean that, you can't work on multiple fronts.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I've only lived here since 15. And I don't know when did the sewer go in?
In the 80s?
In the 80s, but then there was no work done since then. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I mean, there's a guy out here maintenance all
Yeah,
the time.
yeah, so
but
that's
as far as
yeah.
expansion or anything.
40 years later, they've put $1.2 million, or
Yep.
partial of $1.2 million. But
Touche.
yeah, well, and I'm not trying to push back on what you're saying. You don't know either. You're like me. You moved. Well, no, you live anyway. I'll stop babbling. But yeah, okay. So that's so vital to, if we're going to try to have this housing expansion, to know whether we can do that. And I think what I hear you saying is we have to get to the engineering study. And you guys need to be the financial partner on that, because it's the county who would be doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
under a special district, that's your option right now, from a financing perspective is you're already under a special district, utility district. So it'd be an expansion of that and utilizing that mechanism right now, where I think that the Board of Commissioners now run that special district. And then the other alternative where you no longer have to listen to the Board of Commissioners would be to incorporate.
Mhm. And so does an engineering, forgive my ignorance, does it show multiple possibilities? Or does it focus on, you need to say, here's exactly what we want to do, or do they come tell you what you can do?
Well, there's always, there's usually multiple solutions. By Oregon law, you need to design a 50-year structure for
Mhm.
public utilities.
Okay,
But like I said, there's different technologies. And then there's value engineering.
which is what?
Value, once you have kind of the Cadillac version that meets all the requirements, bells and whistles, then the engineers need to start sharpening their pencils and say, we don't need a heated toilet, things like that, and they get it down to the nubs. And what the kind of the lowest common denominator or functionality could be, based on what kind of funding you might have and how functional it can be to meet its minimum qualifications, basically. So it's an iterative process generally.
So what does the CAC, or what can the CAC do if this is something that the community and the committee are interested in moving forward on this engineering survey?
A request to try to identify funding, to look at capacity of that sewer system.
Yeah, so a funding request would be the next step.
Mm-hmm.
It's also interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Can I make a comment? Pedro?
Yeah, of course.
I was kind of getting the hint that Alsea doesn't pay its own way for what we receive. I just would like to state that if we have more tax base coming from more dwellings, we could contribute more to ourselves, and that's all I have to say.
That's a good
No,
point.
it's an important consideration, right? So, I mean, there's trade-offs. Do we know if you've proportionately received what you're paying into county taxes? I have no idea. I don't do any of that allocation over time. I don't. But, if you were to incorporate, then the county would not get those taxes, any longer, and you would have control over those decisions for yourselves. And you would also be a taxing authority yourself, and you would have the ability to tax yourselves if you wanted to, but you don't have to.
Nobody will vote for this.
Exactly, no.
It has to be voted on by the people inside the town, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But my idea is to expand the towns.
That's what I'm driving at,
Yes.
like, because
Or
yeah,
put more buildable lands in the resource lands, because that's all we have out here.
Well-
And that brings us to the MPA zone.
Well,
Every
the other,
time.
I just finished I'm on a farming book reading a lot of farm books lately.
I've noticed that.
And, this gentleman in Georgia, Harris Farms, he had, when he revived his town of, whatever, 600 people, it's about like Alsea, that was dying from industrial agriculture.
mhm.
And, when he did regenerative agriculture and got rid of the inputs, but also finding where to sell his products, it ended up building a slaughterhouse.
Mhm.
And then expanding it, and that hired people that they could live there and outlets, to, bigger grocery stores. And to control the supply from the beginning to the finished product and finally the end, and Alsea could do something like that.
We could go back to having a dairy. We were a dairy co-op
We can do
until
all that
fairly
now.
recently,
Well,
We
yeah.
can, we just don't have any place for people to live,
Yeah.
Well,
just like we have teachers can't live here.
Yeah.
It's,
yeah,
it's just
And we're,
lack of housing.
Yeah,
we're losing our farmers.
well,
They have to, I mean, that's my grandkids, they have to go someplace else to find a job, find a house. And, and OSU has put out a whole plan about, having at least 3 generations on each farm. So that the kids can learn when they're young. And you can take the old care of the old people like me when they get old. And I might like to put it in something for myself, saying, I am still helping with the farm, even though I can hardly do anything. I can do the bookwork and I can sell the logs if I need to or whatever. Like, old as hills that I am, I still help. And,
And you're here with us.
yeah, you can't get rid of me, but I'm sorry about that.
if you can have generational housing on the exclusive farm use or the forest land, that would help, but also that's the reason Ted and I didn't, move out here, because it's, we'd have to commute to town for work.
Exactly.
And so, because our work didn't make enough to support
catch
traveling
22.
back and forth. And
Where do you
so,
start?
if you do have a business or two that could hire local people, they wouldn't necessarily leave. So it's sort of the chicken and the egg kind of thing.
I agree.
And before, can you remember I asked if anybody read the Rural Light?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It was printed on black in it, so I got it off their web page.
Okay.
We can pass these around. Do you want this? Yeah, I think you want one?
Sure.
I think I got.
Sorry,
three
Peter,
copies.
this is off the agenda, but, it's kind of public comment.
Yeah.
Moving in on your time.
Yes.
did you guys, does anybody have questions for Pedro before we?
We just
do-
need to.
Do you have more
learn how
that you need to
we gotta
say, Pedro?
expand the septic system. I mean. just-
No, I'm fine. If we get through our stuff, I
Mhm.
feel better.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Did you finish what you needed to say about the zoning in the village boundary?
Yeah, if you have any more questions, I'm happy, I'm available. I could bring a primer from
What-
outside, we could bring in training. I know that Patrick would like to come back and talk to you all at some point when you're ready.
I think what Janet is trying to say on behalf of the committee, and I don't know, anybody could speak up. We're ready, we're more than ready. We've been ready for decades to try to get some housing out here. So anything that can move that forward would just be marvelous.
Yeah, it's great. There's a lot going on in this short session of the legislature on housing as well, outside of urbanized areas.
Yeah.
So
there-
we're keeping a
yeah.
close eye on that because we really don't have, as a county, don't have a lot of influence on the ability to build much more in an unincorporated than what you have before you. So anyway, the board is pro helping in that area. And they're prepared to write letters of support and testify on behalf of Alsea and other communities in Benton County to try to get some additional housing, even in exclusive farm use.
What board were you referring to?
Commissioners,
Okay.
yeah, they're not against the changes yet.
That is good to hear.
Isn't that good to hear?
That's good to hear.
Oh, and I don't know if everybody picked up on that. Zan was the liaison for the CAC, and now it's Pat Malone, because Zan has retired.
Well, I know that somehow. I don't know how I know.
You read it, it went out in something,
Okay.
but yeah. I figured probably most people weren't reading the whole thing.
That's okay. And Pat Malone is a tree farmer in Kings Valley. He's lived out there almost all of his life, and he just really felt like he wanted to be the liaison for Alsea just because there's some similarities on this side of the county. So he would like to come out and say hi and introduce himself in person, perhaps at the next meeting, if that's something you're interested in.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we?
And Nancy Weiss has reached out too. She's gonna come out for a visit. Maybe take the auto tour that Naomi and I take people on. So, the commissioners are reaching out. Zan was just such a wonderful liaison because she put on those government corners, where we could actually hear directly from our elected representatives, but it's good that
She actually knew where Alsea was.
yeah,
And that's great.
yeah, it's very, that
Back
it's
in the
that
olden
it's in
days.
Benton County and all that.
Back in the olden days, when I was on the commission.
Yeah, they didn't even know where.
We took field trip.
and
Most of them had never been to Alsea, they'd never been to Summit.
Had they heard of
They'd
them?
never been to, Hoskins area,
Mhm.
but they'd heard of them.
They had
They
heard of
had
them.
ruled on cases concerning, rural Benton County is their concern.
Right,
But they didn't.
they had no idea,
know where
Right. Right,
they knew where they're located on a map, but that
Right.
doesn't give you the terrain, the feel of a property.
no, it's pretty hard not to fall in love with Alsea if you take an auto tour and somebody
So
tells you a
it's
little
just,
bit about the town, yeah.
It's something that bothers me.
Mhm.
I used to drive the old county roads, north, south, east and west, just so I would know.
Mhm.
North Albany, a lot of concerns with North Albany back in olden days that really need to have a feel for it, to know what the community's coming in to talk about and
Well-
make their testimony, but
Yeah.
click in your brain if you've never been.
You don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why it's so important that the rural voices are present on the planning commission, and it's good that the commissioners are reaching out, that. Which is just kind of a tacit acknowledgement of educate me a little bit, let me know, right? Yeah. So.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Pedro?
No, I just want to mention that Farm Bureau isn't really interested in encroaching on EFU if the people are gonna continue to come out to work.
Well, there's no guarantees in life what people are gonna do.
But anyway, just
You
like to
can't
give you a
really
heads
do
up
that.
on that. If we had places for people to work and live out here, they'd be much more.
I love that idea.
Well, we need more workers out here. I mean,
No, we had people interested in coming here at one point, put in a robotics company.
Yeah.
You all know that story. Nowhere to live, so they wouldn't come.
It's just the proverbial catch-22.
Yeah,
And
it
I
just-
figure if we've at least got properties that are available and potentially could be built on, they don't have to have a home on it yet, but have the potential,
The possibility that you could,
we will look a little more enticing
right,
to a company that wants to move here.
gotcha.
If we ever found one again, that was kind of a one-shot thing, but just because we make it available to be built on, doesn't mean it's gonna have a house on it tomorrow. Just needs to be a little more flexibility, in my opinion.
Well, it seems like we just circle back to housing, no matter what we talk about.
Well,
We seem to circle back to it,
well,
yeah.
everything, but
Yeah.
kind of hinges on economy and it
Well,
all
and
works together.
I was thinking about it because when we teach kids their first social studies lesson, what is it? Basic needs, right? And the first one is shelter. We need to provide shelter for the human beings. you know, that are sleeping on the sidewalks. Can't afford the apartments. I mean, there's that element of it, but out here you just need to provide it for people who are even able to purchase a home,
Like our grown children.
like our grown children, right? Yeah, who would like to, yeah.
A scattered.
Yeah. I mean, I really thought about that this week. I'm like, it's up in all of our faces collectively as a country, right? And it's a state and right on down to Alsea. You know, we need to have enough shelter for our humans.
Well, they are letting these old two-story houses get overgrown with blackberries, so
It's true.
that's not, that hasn't been addressed either.
Well, that's kind of a private ownership issue.
Well, it's
I mean,
still a
you can't force
house and
people
it
to do
can be
something with their
built.
land like
It's
that.
an existing house.
Oh, you mean it's right where they could put another structure? Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right.
It's up to 18 years. It was 22 years that they fought in court. There's a building that had been flattened. It was in Central Oregon, Eastern Oregon, and they fought to have it back. And it had been a house there, but it was nothing for 22 years, and they got building from it now in the current farm use manual. It's 18 years. So you can have a house that's been there, that's been gone for 18 years. If it's 17 years, you can build another house.
Really?
Yeah,
That's,
Is it that way in Benton County, Phaedra?
that's in the Oregon State manual.
you can, as long as it's not been absent more than 17 years, you can,
Not more than 18 years.
not more than 18.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I think that sunsetting rule's different in different communities. I think here it's 10 years.
The state
How
land
many?
use manual.
I think it's 10 years, but I don't know that for sure.
No, it
I
used to
read
be
it.
10 years. No, it used to be 1 year.
Yeah.
It used to be 1 year. They moved it.
Yeah, so that's what you get when you have to get the roof.
Are you talking about like major 37, 49?
No, it's in the state land use, the Department of Revenue farmland manual.
About replacing homes that are dilapidated, in disrepair.
Or burn down.
But even if
Oh,
it's-
after demolition or if they burn down?
Or even if
Yeah.
it's gone,
Yeah, okay, I'm
Not
sorry,
that-
I wasn't following.
that you know that it was there at one time. Now it has to be kind of documented.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can't put another house on my where Uncle Ben used to, was it Uncle Benny used to live. But
More complications, but the land is just.
I have another question. My dad's property also has irrigation rights. Is that something you have to renew, or is that just,
no,
They usually follows with your land.
that's what I thought,
But you need to
you're
use them.
supposed to use it, but they haven't enforced it.
yeah,
And you can actually lease out part of it.
I use it in the summer.
Yeah, that's, if you use it, then you're fulfilling your right, so it's automatic, you don't have to pay it.
Okay.
Well, it used to be olden days. The dirty little secret was the state water master was so busy, he was so behind. He wouldn't find out for 10 years, so don't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also want to check out to see if you're vested or not.
Oh, that's a good thing. How do you be vested as opposed to just owning the property?
It's complicated. I can't speak to it very easily, but it takes quite a long time. It's like 10 to 15 years of the legal process to make sure that you have that. It puts you in permanent standing as opposed to potentially being trumped by other folks who are upstream.
Okay, any other questions for Peyton? Ready? Upcoming meetings and events. Next meeting, March 3rd. And you guys can help Justin? Yes, we are. And that's all I can think of. Anybody else think of something?
Public comment more, or
Oh, we have some next, more public comment, which we've kind of done all along. We've commented. Anything else? Anybody?
Oh, I had asked for a minute. How are we doing on time? Yeah, I'll be very brief. So last Thursday, we had the first meeting of the Community Comprehensive Plan, which is the new name for the county plan rewrite. And there's an advisory group and it met last Thursday, so I have a little bit of information. And that information I wanted to share is that there's just funding right now for this first portion. So I wasn't really able to get many details about what the next steps might be or when they might happen. But right now they're looking at something called scenario planning. And apparently we don't have enough problems right now. We have to think about all the other possible problems we could have and somehow manage to plan for all of those looking for 50 years from now. And I get what they're saying, but you know, we know right now we need shelter in our community, right? So maybe we can stay focused on that. But I talked to some with Shannon Bush, who is the interim planning director, and also the consultant who's working on this portion of the plan. And they said that the ongoing activity that we've been doing here in Alsea to try to get this housing question addressed can be in tandem with the plan development. You know, we don't have to wait for it to be written down on a piece of paper, that we can do it. And back to that, serving social, technological, economic, environmental, and political factors that are going to affect the community for the next 50 years, feed into a plan for the community for the next 20 or 30. Did that make sense the way I said that?
It sounds a lot like that planning that we did back in '87.
Mhm.
Nobody did anything
Mhm.
with.
Right. But and arguably they don't know that the next phases will even be funded. So I don't know if that means the whole project would come screeching to a halt. Yeah, I don't know. And then was there anything else? Oh, and then another planning commissioner, Ed Fulford, who's in charge of they have subcommittees as well. They're functioning with that same model I was trying to describe before the meeting. And he's doing housing, and he wants to come out and meet with and talk. And so if anybody wants to be looped in on that one, let me know. You know, maybe send me an email and say, I'd like to try to meet with Ed when he comes out. And you said Patrick wants to come back, Petra, that would be great.
He wants to find some funding for that technical study, the ESS thing.
Let's help him. Is it like a video game? Do we have to go like chop the bushes down and look for little pots of gold?
Exactly. It to be determined.
I was doing that. Yeah, that sounds great.
But we're gonna invite Pat along.
That's all I had. Thank you. You can ask me questions if you want, or talk to me about that meeting if you want.
This one. But Janet just sent me some things. She said, well, it was on Facebook, and then I got you to email it to me.
Oh, it's the Oregon Property Owners Association article.
Right. Did you send that to the other members?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then I have this thing about, it comes from OSU, and this is the succession plan. And that's to allow 3 generations on your farm. So that you take care of the old people, you train the kids.
Yeah, you can't show them that they don't have to work that hard. If they figure that out, they're just.
Anyway, I can send a link out to that to everybody.
I would like to see that. That would be great.
Anybody?
Okay. We did adjourn, but I've got 2 more. Anybody want some books?
The book lady.
This is the most optimistic book I have read in years. So, anybody up for it?
You gave me one.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I brought,
Yeah.
somebody was missing some.
Who's the author?
David R. Montgomery, he's a geologist, a geomorphologist. I have his first book, Dirt, which is more, covers, farming with the plow from 7,000 BC to now. And so he wrote, it was really, this book, not as, well, not as popularly written as this one. And so he got invited to conferences, so he ended up meeting a lot of the general farmers that are actually improving the soil and becoming successful. People getting into farming. Yeah. Anybody interested?
I will take it.
What?
Nobody else does? I will.
Yeah,
Probably give it back. to you.
it's okay. These are old library copies, I don't like them.
I will, what's the name
For
again?
Sam
David, what?
Montgomery, and it's growing a revolution.
I don't like that.
We're done.
They go to pages.
Here's my gavel.
Click, click. We can get you
Thank
one.
you for coming, Krista.
Thank you.
Thank
Krista.
you.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Okay.
Pizza.
I signed in, I didn't look at the email.
I think everybody, if you want to,
It's on-
we have a